Announcement. The hemp revolution will not be televised. I repeat, the hemp revolution will not be televised. Welcome to the Hemp Revolution podcast, the global hotspot for the buzz and the cannabis. You can hear the stories of the green rush from the dreamers who are writing the rules, innovating the business, and changing history forever. Immerse yourself with the fascinating stories from the leaders in the hemp health revolution to learn how we are changing the game forever. Introducing your hosts, James Brinkerhoff and Sonia Gomez.
All right. Welcome back to the Hemp Revolution, where you're going to find out all the buzz in the cannabis. My name is James Brinkerhoff Jr. I'm going to be your host today. And today I have got a really cool guest from the East Coast. His name is Brad Dollins. He's a CEO and founder of Magu Farms. Prior to farming, Brad managed and consulted for Source pharmaceutical production facilities. He grew up in the mountains of Western North Carolina and enjoys the many activities the area has to offer. What a beautiful part of the country. And thank you very much, Brad. It's nice to meet you. Nice to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me here. It's nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, you bet. So, Brad, tell us a little bit about your journey here that brought you to the hemp industry.
Well, it's been sort of a long-going journey for me. I've always had a bit of a passion for cannabis in general. You know, it started back when I was a teenager. And by the time I got to college, I was writing research papers on it and such like that. And it was a field that I always wanted to work in. And I had a few opportunities that came along the line for me to move out west to be able to work in the field, but they weren't high enough paying to start to justify the move across the country. So I, hadn't really jumped into it yet. And after leaving the industry I was in, which was, pharmaceuticals, I consulted for a few years and decided I wanted to start a business of my own, trying to figure out which one I wanted to open, because I have several that I want to do. And got really close to doing one of them, like to the point where we were looking at real estate, et cetera. Decided to back out last minute, that it wasn't going to be viable for the area anymore from just a business standpoint. And last minute decided to start a farm, doing microgreens. Microgreens are pretty unique little, niche industry. I like the fact that they're very healthy for people. Some of them can be up to 40 times more nutritional value than their adult counterpart. So it's getting into that really is it's got a feeling that's just different from other things when you know that you're doing something that's helping others, even if it's only on nutritional value, such as food. From there, that allowed me to be able to get into my my hemp growing license and farming it and such like that. And I got my processing license actually before I even got my farming license. So I started processing it. I invented my method of processing, which is pretty unique. No one does what I do at the moment because I invented a machine that's part of my process. So It's pretty unique.
Tell us a little bit about that. So let's recap real quick. You were wanting to get into the industry. Your background is from Pharma, right? Your background is from Pharma.
Yeah, I used to manage Source pharmaceutical plasma donation centers.
Okay.
So, it's plasma donations are a really niche industry as well. There's only a handful of companies. They get a really bad rap, unfortunately, when they really shouldn't. And it's because oftentimes a lot of people who do go to donate plasma are people who need money. So you don't get necessarily not everyone who goes there is comes off as being very presentable. Yeah. And oftentimes they can have some issues if they're in a problematic area. And they get a bad rap, but they shouldn't, because, as with anything, it's a fairly good mix of crowd in terms of the donation population and such like that. And for the most part, they really don't have the type of problems. It's just that that's what people speak about. But everyone gets plasma donation products. Most people don't realize that they're plasma donation products. So albuterol inhalers is a plasma donation product. And then there's a lot of, life-saving therapeutics made, IVIG, immunoglobulins, and, Factor VIII. There's just a whole bunch of wide array of medicines that are made from plasma donations. So it's a very needed industry in the first place. So it'd be nice to see plasma donation centers not have such a bad rap. But when you're paying people for money, money for their donation, and You get people who come in specifically for the money. When you get people who come in specifically for the money, then you get people who are not necessarily caring about the end product and what they're doing on that end with it.
Just like the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
So you were in. I mean, it sounds like you're a really smart dude, and you were really already kind of in that space of wanting to help people, and then kind of like the cutting edge technology in the plasma space.
Yeah.
So that kind of pulled you towards wanting to be in the cannabis industry, or what kind of pulled you from the space? It sounds like it was a pretty good career you had going.
Well, yes, it was a pretty good career, but it was also, a bit of a stressful one for me. I managed 60 people at a fairly big, donation center. And the next step for me was to go to an ADOQ type of position, a regional, manager of operations and quality. To do that, you have to travel a lot. You'll spend up to 3 weeks of the month traveling. And I've got a senior dog, and my dog is my world. He's the best thing for me. So that just was not going to be a viable option. So I didn't want to be stagnant just as a center manager. I'm not one for being stagnant with anything. I never have been, and I never will be. Complacency is a death sentence, in my opinion. So I decided to leave it and started consulting for the industry and, doing some things on the side, odd things. I like being a bit unique. So creating things is where my big passion is, ultimately in the process of creation. So, I wanted to do something that's just kind of different, kind of new. So, as I had a few years of, downtime, so to speak, while I was doing consulting, I wasn't doing, crazy hours of working and such like that. So I started tinkering and building things. I've always been one to do such. And, in that time frame, I actually developed, my process.
Yeah, kind of a mad scientist, it sounds like.
A little bit. Here's one of my things. That's a Tesla coil.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty big one. I can't even run it here. I tried to run it here. I need a much bigger circuit breaker than what I have at the house. I can't. It broke my. I have a variable transformer. It's called a variac. It's not that big of one. It's 20 amp variac, but it popped everything I put it on. So
that's
it's pretty
cool,
big.
man. Yeah,
It'll throw about 2 million volt streamers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So is that how you're energizing your CBD products?
Well, not quite with a Tesla coil, but it is through. And the invention does involve electricity, actually.
Oh wow. So you needed more time freedom and location freedom for your dog, your family, and stuff, for the things that you wanted to do. And you wanted to be in the cannabis industry. So you had a few job options on the West Coast, and that didn't quite work out.
Yeah, it wasn't enough. I got offered to be a shatter hasher for a particular company out in Denver. It's pretty well-known company, but the starting pay was like $36K. What am I going to do with that? That's in Denver, you're scraping by at $36K.
Yeah, you are.
And I'm not trying to scrape by. I understand that, you need to get your foot, in the door, so to speak. And, from there you can make it whatever you want to make it. And I weighed it out quite heavily, but the difference was quite vast between here and there. I was making a fair bit more, and cost of living was a fair bit less. So it wasn't viable.
So you decided to get into the greens business.
Yeah, I got into microgreens.
How much did it cost to get into that? Did you have to buy a farm?
No. I didn't have to buy a farm. Microgreens is a really good thing for people if they want to do something that's really low cost startup. Yeah. It depends on your area in terms of your local municipalities and what their rules and regulations are of farming. But for urban farming, there really isn't a rule per se. You could do it theoretically in your house. Oftentimes people do with microgreens. We had a small space that we were working with, but it was a nice little, dedicated space, and it doesn't take much room. They grow very quickly, depending on the species of what you're growing. There's a whole bunch of different ones that exist. So
did you make money with that? Was that a money making?
Yeah. It makes money. The thing about microgreens that people need to factor in if they want to get into it is that you need to have a customer essentially before you grow them. Because from the time you go to actually cut them to using them, you have a shelf life of some as few as 3 days, some, might be 5 or 6 if you're lucky. They have a fairly quick shelf life. It's not much bigger than a sprout, so to speak. Sprouts and such, there's a lot of rules and regulations associated with sprouts, but if you want to grow sprouts, because of the disease potential with pathogens and stuff like that, moist environment. So like there's a lot more regulation with it. There's not that with microgreens, but they have a very short shelf life. So oftentimes you'll see people that don't cut them anymore when they're growing them to sell. Yeah. They'll sell it like the growing substrate, whatever it is. You just hear buy it.
Here's the tray. Yeah,
pretty much. But if you have customers beforehand, you'll do well. If you overgrow and don't have the customer base for it, you might not. You might flunk. They're expensive. You anticipate a certain price back, on your return for what you're investing into it. And it's another niche thing. You don't really, if you go in a grocery store and look for microgreens, you might see one or two in a small section, probably around the herbs. And that'll be about all you see in a grocery store. So they still haven't really picked off yet for what they should. And we've put it on the back burner for us, but we are going back to it.
Oh, nice. So tell me about that transition and kind of what kind of led you to the hemp. And
the transition came with the approach of the farm bill looking like it was going to be passed. Prior to that, because I do have a co-owner partner in the business, and prior to that, he didn't really see it being something that he wanted to risk without the farm bill passing. He's a fairly astute, businessman, and he doesn't want to do anything that's going to potentially harm or tarnish the other things that he's associated with, and I don't blame him.
Sure.
So upon it looking like it was going to pass, we went ahead and decided to pull the trigger on it. It passed, and it's been the doors have been wide open since.
Oh,
so it's been very exciting.
And the name of the company is Magu? Magu.
Yeah, and there's there's many different variations of how it's pronounced and spelled. Magu is an ancient Asian deity across many of the Asian cultures. So,
okay, that's what it stands for.
Yeah, there's China, Japan, Korea, I believe Thailand or Taiwan, at least those four, but many of the other ones have it as well. And the one spelling might be like Mako, Maku, Magu, Mago. But the deity itself has like a really cool story. Supposedly there was a peach story. Someone gave her a peach. She then re-gifted it to a needy lady. Needy lady ate it. She went back to check on her, because she was sick or something. And all she found was the peach pit. And then she planted that. It grew. Peaches were sort of magical and had healing power,
cool
powers and properties.
Yeah.
Give those to the needy and the sick and such. So I really like the aspect of the goodwill of her character and the stories and stuff that are associated with her. And she was known to have a healing cannabis elixir. And she's known as a hemp deity in general. And our symbol is actually a symbol that's associated with Magu. It's an old one that just represents hemp drying in a shack.
Well, that's cool, man. Yeah, I love the stories. There's so many brands popping up, and it's really cool when, you talk to somebody and there's like a real deep connection with the story behind it and has a real meaning. And to me, I think those are the businesses that people can really connect with and that, and kind of connect with that story and be like, oh, those guys are really about something. So that's really neat, man. So many of our viewers they're living in states where medical cannabis isn't accessible to them. And because of that, they're really passionate about seeing it legalized, or at least made available for medical access. So what was it like for you in the beginning, like kind of around that time where it was still a little bit sketchy or whatever? I mean,
it's still semi-sketchy.
Do you use it? Do you use the CBD? And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have, some things that I like to have, sorted out better with my own personality and such that it does help a fair bit with. I have, ADHD, fairly bad for an adult. I'm a wiry person, constantly go. I have a hard time sitting still, and I talk incredibly fast, and I have to think to slow that down.
Yeah.
So, CBD products do help me with that. They help me sleep at night. Oftentimes it's hard for me to sleep just in general. The brain's kind of hard to shut off. So I do take it in the nighttime to help me actually fall asleep, and it helps me tremendously with that. And, if I ever do have a down moment in terms of, having depressive thoughts or something, it can help snap that back out quick. So for me, if I do have a depressive, string of thoughts, because, maybe it's just a bad day, something happened, whatever, the ebb and flow of life. I don't like having negativity around me or on me, so to speak. So, if I have some depressive thoughts that seem to be more than just a blip, then I'll just go ahead and go to my my little CBD oil bottle. I like the oil that I make. Hit a dropper of that, and 5-10 minutes later, I'm back to my groove, on about business.
That's awesome.
And that's a real benefit to a person who's in business or is busy and has to focus on work and doesn't have time to really dwell on things. And people shouldn't anyway. Dwelling on negativity is only going to do worse. So anything that can help, snap people out of that, people would find beneficial. I mind you, like, this is what I use it for personally. I obviously, as a company, we can't make medical claims, which I really hope that changes someday. We're going to aim to set ourselves up in a way that maybe we can someday make medical claims. But, laws will have to change,
trials and stuff,
to be able to do that as a company.
Well, it's really cool to hear how the hemp is helping you, like, in your everyday life. And I think it's huge for just that's pretty much what I do. And if you don't know anything about
my dog.
I heard it's great for animals. And I know my dad's dog, when it was getting towards the end of his life, he gave him a lot of THC because he had sore hips and kind of like arthritis or whatever. And that dog lived like another year and a half and felt a lot better. So that changed. And my dad was really conservative, so that changed his whole mind on the plant. But just the education, that's all pretty much what we're all about over here, is getting this education out. And we do that through telling stories like yours, and a lot through video and articles, but continuing to show people that, like, this is helping us focus and concentrate and stay positive and stay in balance. It's not like taking us away or making us stare at the ceiling or all that kind of stuff, and there's very high.
The exact opposite.
And I tell people, like, I have a 7-figure business and I use cannabis products every day. And I'm so focused, and I get so much production done for some. And I have a small business, like very few employees. And so, they're like, yeah, you're crazy, James. But I continue to bring these stories out, and there's very high level people that are using this stuff, and it helps them,
Well, cannabis in general has always had a very negative connotation to it from a public standpoint, at least since the 30s or so. And what's funny is hemp is actually what really caused marijuana to become illegal in the first place. It really wasn't marijuana, it was hemp crushing the paper industry.
Right.
So they wanted to associate it with something that people would see as bad. So they named it marijuana because of that was the Mexican word for it. So they wanted to associate it with a negative connotation of Hispanic people at the time. Like, there's a big whole side note with that. I'll get off the soapbox before I step up on. But, it's personally, I started using it when I was very young. And for people that say that it inhibits you, I would argue, okay, as a teenager, I used it daily from the time I started, pretty much when I was only 12, throughout my entire teenage years. But yet I started college full time at 16. It really doesn't inhibit you the way that people think it does. If people want to be lazy, they're going to be lazy regardless. You can't blame the substance for making them lazy. That's completely a person's own will and or lack thereof.
Right. So let me ask you another question. What keeps you in the industry when people are, a lot of people are flooding in? I know there's people are dropping out every day. What's your mission in your work? Why do you do what you do? The higher purpose of all this.
For us, the higher purpose is actually quite far reaching. I feel like we're still in a baby stage for us. Like, we're a young company in the first place. We're still within our first year, but we are growing rapidly, for that matter. And we're doing things pretty differently, and we're going to continue to do things differently. So we are in the process of also expanding, and that expansion is far reaching. It's not just hemp. We're expanding research because we're currently doing research as we're growing. So our own grow is personally like all indoor. Like, if we do grow outdoor, it'll only be in terms of, for us, for research purposes, textiles, something like that. Or, if other people want it, we'll sell it to other people, but it's not going to be used in our own human consumption products. For that, we only, use indoor. I only use trim flower for our products. I don't use biomass. We're solventless. And I could charge a lot more considering that. It's a lot more costly for me initially on the starting product. Hand trimmed flower versus, biomass are two completely different prices when you're talking hemp. Like there's a big difference.
Oh yeah. My buddy's got 3 million pounds ready to go in the field. And, we're talking $20 a pound or something, it's like.
Yeah. And that's as biomass, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Where they're going to mill it all up. Yeah. And when you're talking like the last purchase of flour I did, is over $400 a pound.
Yeah.
And that was like, a good deal for that matter. I was kind of happy with that price. And now what we're going to be doing is it's been tough for us to find the type of quality that I want to work with. I'm super finicky about quality, always have been. I don't like things to be subpar. I'm kind of, I don't know. My thought process just in general with life is that regardless of who you are or what you're doing, it can always be done better, even if it's so minute that it might be immeasurable, so to speak, but it can always be done better. Mm. And I like to keep that thought process, especially in business. So with quality, that's something that really stands out and makes, a difference. So we're growing right now. I have quite a few plants. I don't know, around 1,000 plants growing indoor. And this is our first grow. It's our bit of a research facility at the moment. We're testing several different lights to see what are going to be best for us and our purposes. And it's exciting to see what's going to happen. So as we go to expand, though, we're going to be introducing some newer techniques that really aren't being utilized yet. And we're also going to be reaching out into different research areas that are not really being done yet either.
Oh, it sounds pretty exciting. What drives this research? Like what is bothering you that you need to figure out?
Oh, everything. So I originally went to school for medicine. I was biology pre-med and I wanted to be a research physician. That was what I wanted to do by trade. I got into medical school, had issues getting loans, so I didn't end up going. So that's what stopped me from being a doctor. But that's what I wanted to do initially. And now I'm just old enough. I don't really care to go back to school for medicine. If I want to learn something, I can learn it up really easily. I can go and look it up, read about it, learn it, etc. I don't need another degree at this point. Though I might go back, who knows? But I doubt it'd be for medicine. But there are many different issues in the world that really need to be fixed, and we could do significantly better on. So our energy needs, our food needs, our mental health, specifically here in America. Everybody wants to talk about gun control. Who's talking about mental health?
Yeah.
Look at all these different places that have guns. They don't have our issues. We have some issues in America. So it would be really nice if we could get to a point where we're addressing those issues from a logical standpoint and not putting foolish politics into something. People are all, it's left, it's right, blah, blah, blah. Who cares about any of that? Like, what's better for us as a whole, and what's better for people, what's better for humanity? Caring about each other the way that you should. You see somebody that has mental health issues, they need help. Try to get them help if you know them. So, the endocannabinoid system, I think, is a way that a lot of the, mental health issues could be from a personal standpoint, not a business standpoint. I think that's how, we could really start making progress towards better mental health in America.
It's a great start, isn't it?
It's very renewable, so we can access it in a large scale, and it's something that really would help more people than not, even if they don't realize that, there's something slightly off within them. It's funny the way that it affects you. Like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, I think, to a certain degree. There are things about yourself that you don't really necessarily realize until you have an experience with something. And then, you'll have a bit of an epiphany. I didn't realize that I did that, or I didn't realize that was actually bothering me or whatever. And, my personal experience with using CBD is that I did not realize that, I was a bit more depressed, at times than I thought I was.
Wow.
It was with just taking it, on a random thing that, that it clicked for me that made an instant difference. And I was like, well,
Do you keep track of all this data like that you're doing? Like, do you do specific kind of like trials on yourself, or are you doing that kind of research where you take one that's like maybe a placebo or something, and then for 7 days, and then take the real CBD, and then you ever try?
No, I haven't kept track of that with myself, as that would be science. I don't know. To a certain degree, that's not great science. It'd be very opinionated from, me doing it with myself. Now, mind you, all science is self-experiment.
Yeah, well, it's a kind of a cool test if you don't have a lot of money and a big test group. I know different formulators and different patients and clients of ours, they've been testing it on themselves, like before they work out or after they work out. And they tell me they notice the difference, like if they're not taking it.
Yes.
And it's kind of subtle. And they've told me that sometimes you got to take it for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And the things are subtle. It's like you stop feeling those things that you used to feel, like different little pains and different just little strains and stuff. But it kind of takes a minute for it to really like build up and be this consistent, it's kind of like you're nourishing your endocannabinoid system, and it gets to a point of balance depending on the user, right? How imbalanced they are.
Correct. And that gets into the aspect too of like isolate, broad spectrum, full spectrum, et cetera. All of our products are full spectrum.
Yeah. Tell me some more about your products.
So currently I make oil. I use MCT, coconut-based MCT as our carrier oil. We are going to be, expanding to have another one that's not going to be coconut-based, so that people who have coconut allergy issues will be able to use them as well. So that's going to be one of the next line of products coming. But our products are very full spectrum. But my method's what's unique about it, and in all honesty, it's still in the process of like the research of how exactly it's doing it with the actual cannabinoids. So the process itself will decarboxylate and infuse it into the oil, and it does so in a way that keeps all of the CBD in terms of respective percentages, but it actually does not pull over quite all of the THC equitably. So for some reason, it actually works better for CBD than it works for THC. And I don't know why, to be honest. So that's very fascinating for me. We are going out for our USDA organic certification as well, for processing and for growing.
Nice.
So
can you tell me a little bit about the process? You don't have to give away your secrets, but how about a little bit about how are you pulling the oil from the biomass?
I'm trying to think of what I can say that wouldn't be something that would be giving it away, because we're not going to patent it. I was going to patent it, and then I thought that would be more foolish than not. There are certain places in the world that don't care about U.S. patents, and they will take it. And once it's public knowledge, it's public knowledge. So unless I intentionally leave out something in the patent, then it could easily be stolen by, foreign places, so to speak. And they do that left and right. I've spoken with a patent attorney about it and a couple other different things that, I want to patent in terms of like.
So you're just going to try to keep it under wraps?
For now, it's something that until we decide whether or not we're going to utilize it for processing for others, or if we're going to just do, remain, like the standard methods for processing for others, then, it'll be kept under wraps. If we start doing it for others, then I'll go ahead and let people know what we're doing. We'll probably
it's got no solvents. Is that the deal? There's no solvents.
Nope, no.
Water?
No.
Wow.
It's pretty unique.
That's cool, man. And now I'm intrigued. I'm like, I want to know what's going on.
Well, I took a particular piece of equipment that is not typically used for extraction in the first place, and it's what holds my mass. And from there, I've modified that machine, or it's not really a machine, that's just a piece of equipment, so to speak. I've modified that and made it a machine by adding a device that I made. So it's a homemade device, and from there, that collective machine is what does my extraction. And it's very unique. So I think it's something that a lot of people would like to have. So we are pondering as to whether or not we want to sell it.
Get in the equipment business, man, and get into the picks and shovels pieces industry.
Potential. I mean, we're looking at equipment business for other things as well.
What does these products do that other products don't do? Have you tested it against ethanol extraction? Have you tried it against supercritical? What are these products known for? I mean, I know we can't talk about claims, but you're mainly just making an oil, right? You're making a pure oil. Anything else?
Yeah. So I also make our Magu's Gift. So the products that we make, we call it Magu's Gift as our house brand, so to speak. It's by Magu Farm. So we make a pain 300 and a repair 300. They're both topical balms. So one's more towards like, a relief, so to speak. People use it after workouts on their muscles or whatever, wherever they feel like is, a touch on the achy side that they might want to, step up a bit from, personal perspective, not from company perspective. And then the repair is, it's, again, tricky wording on trying to keep it from stating medical claims. It's more geared towards personal story, not business story. Personal story. I had a friend of mine, her son has eczema. And, she was telling me about the issues that she had been having with trying things that are supposed to work for eczema that aren't working. And she wanted something that would work, that was also a natural base. She doesn't like chemicals or anything like that. Her son was vaccine injured, unfortunately, as an infant, and ended up with dyspraxia from it. So, he's got some sensitivities that she's very aware of. And, she's very picky in terms of what she gives her son at this point. His first, before he ever left the hospital, he got 2 or 3 Hep B vaccine shots, before he even left the hospital. They're supposed to be spanned out over 6 months for an adult, between 3 of them. So he got a lot of vaccinations very quickly that he should not have gotten. So anyway, she is talking to me about it, and I, decided I'd go ahead and look into what would be something, what works for eczema. So looking at all the different various natural things, this, that, the third, et cetera, came up with formulations, tried a couple different things, and settled on one that seemed to have some results for her in a personal standpoint. And then, we went ahead and moved on to making, I personally took that formulation and said, okay, this is good formulation. This could be a good product for something for, skin repair or whatever,
Yeah.
And then from a business perspective, saw, a good topical balm formulation and decided to go ahead and put it into products and let people buy it and choose how to use it how they see fit.
So you got oil, you got topical. What else?
That's all we have at the moment. It's just those. We have ones that are the upcoming ones. I'll talk about some of those. So we have a 2-in-1 coming out, a massage and lubrication.
Oh, cool.
So a massage lube type thing. So that'll be coming out around the beginning of the year. Also around the same time, we're going to start having some solventless smokable products.
Wow, that's what I like.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some live products. So,
cool, man.
I'm pretty excited about that.
So you're gonna freeze it? You're gonna flash freeze it right when you harvest it? And
yeah.
That's what we do in Colorado. We flash freeze it less than like half an hour after it's cut.
Yeah.
And then we make ice hash, and then we mechanically separate it.
Yep, we'll be doing that.
Sweet. Yeah. That's great, man. That's cool. That's what I always ask people, like, what's gonna make you stand out? There's thousands of people starting brands, hundreds of brands every day probably. And what's going to make you unique and what's going to make you stand out. And there's not really many people doing that, what I call like an artisanal extract, because there's really no way to scale that right now and still keep the quality of terpene and extraction.
That's one of the things that we're working on.
Scalability.
Yeah. Initially it'll be for just us, but I've got some ideas and some machines that need to be tested. And if they work, then I will be smiling quite bigly. Because
we can talk about a Colorado license for our THC facility that my family has here.
Yeah, because if that machine works like it needs to, then we will be selling that. And it's basically, a very scaled version of boutique artisanal type of solventless products.
I love it because I'm always thinking about the masses, and I see when I go to the store, I see the kind of CBD. It's like from stalks and stems. And it's not like the oils that you get from the flower. And so I know that the masses are out there. They're like looking at all these, everything says CBD on, and it's just hard to kind of figure out what's the real medicine? Which one's activated? Like which one's really it's going to do something. And
Yeah.
So that's cool. This is the kind of medicine that works. And I've been a patient, I've been a grower, and I've done, like artisanal style extractions and steam distillation. But I'm also a patient. I've got Hashimoto's hypothyroid, and I got chronic inflammation. And the best, people try to tell me to eat it and put it on my skin and stuff. And I've used cannabis every single different which way, but the best effect for my kind of overall balance is these solventless resins and like vaping them at low temperatures. And for me, it's amazing. It's like amazing. And I'm ready to rock like all day long. I'll work 12-hour days if I have that medicine. It just keeps me. So people are always asking me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you probably can't get it in your neighborhood yet, and come out to Colorado. Then I have students and clients that come out here, and I show them, and they're like, oh my gosh, we've been on the East Coast just using whatever we got. And I'm like, yeah, it's a whole new world. Like once you wait in the next few years, like all this new stuff is coming out, and these terpenes and flavonoids and all this stuff working together is just amazing.
Yeah. The entourage effect is real. It wasn't even like that long ago discovered for the most part. I mean, even the endocannabinoid system wasn't that long ago discovered. It was like 92, I think,
Right.
And that's one of the things about, America and the way that we've allowed only very certain cannabis studies to be done in the States, over the years and such. So if you want to get like some real cannabis research papers and knowledge, people need to look at Israel actually.
Yeah.
Israel is going to have the most up-to-date and unbiased research papers. If you look at all the research papers coming out of the U.S. over the last 20 years on it, the majority of them are all from a negative standpoint from the very get-go. And
all paid for by the lobbyists.
Oh yeah,
all paid for.
Yeah, like the fight against it's foolish. The amount of money that we spend against it is foolish. And, there's a whole soapbox moment associated with that as well. It's a very deep and entangled system of crap. And there's just no two ways around it. Now that I do see that changing federally in the next couple of years. I could see that changing federally within the next year, for that matter. I think it's at a point now since, more than half the country has at least medical.
Yeah.
More than half the country now. That's overwhelming.
Yeah, the momentum is just too strong. They can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Well, people like money.
Yeah.
Specifically, the people who want lobbyists and stuff like money. And when they are now seeing what like states like Colorado have done, it's like, man, the amount of money that it's generated for Colorado as a state is impressive.
It's amazing.
The state's really, really benefiting from it. I know, unfortunately for the original local people, real estate went up like crazy. So that's one of the things that states need to do a better job mitigating in terms of if they can, so to speak, so that there's not some high price, increase of housing and then locals have issues.
Yeah, everybody flocked to Colorado, the jobs and, for the cannabis industry. Then there's like the medical immigrants that are trying to get the medicine and, get it to their kids, get it to their family members. And then, man, this state is booming and it's beautiful. Like all of our parks are pristine. Money's coming into the school systems. And it's just like
homeless people, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, there's tons of jobs here. So it's like kind of inevitable that the real estate's going to go up.
Yeah, but I think that it happened a little quickly for a lot of locals. Because I've got quite a few friends out in the area, and for a few of them, they ended up on some hard times because of it. Where like initially when they first moved out there, this was back in say I think it was like 2004 or 5 that one of my first friends moved out there. And then real estate wasn't that bad.
Yep.
And then he was struggling with finding a job. His degree was in like parks and rec management. So it's not really, it's a niche field that doesn't pay great in the first place. So, he wasn't really making a killing for like, as soon as that cost of living went up, it was like, oh crap, rents, like my landlord just raised my rent on me.
You better get into the cannabis industry.
Yeah. Oh, he wants in the cannabis industry like crazy. He really does. He lives down in Colorado Springs. I'm going to see him at the end of the month here. He's getting married.
Well, it's cool. Talk to me about, or just tell me, a lot of my listeners are interested in getting into the industry, the hemp or the cannabis side. What kind of advice do you have? And, and what should they expect when they're trying to get into the business?
Expect a lot of, just adversity. You have to be strong-willed. the amount of shutdown that you'll have left and right from things, just trying to advertise and market is astoundingly frustrating. I mean, it is frustrating, like just trying to get your products on, say something like, Google Shopping, because you'll see, you'll find CBD products on Google Shopping. Try to get your own products on it. Watch how hard it is.
Yeah.
It is incredibly hard to do. You can remove CBD from all of your labeling, all of your hashtags, et cetera, still won't. Like there's certain aspects that you have to, and that's another frustrating thing is that, you'll see companies that are clearly, they seem to be very clearly mislabeling intentionally so that the products can be on there, where it'll say, hemp seed oil, but it'll still have 1,000 milligram on it or something like that.
Yeah, they are.
You know what I mean? And there's a lot of shadiness going on. I don't like, I don't want to do that for us, so I call ours what it is. It's a hemp flower solventless oil. If you go to our website and our product descriptions, we have our lab results in there where you can look at our lab results, where we use Cannabis for our lab results at the moment. And we also have used Steve Hill as well, from ISO accredited labs. And
exactly.
you can see what the cannabinoids are in there. So you can see that they are the THC, CBD, CBN, all of the various cannabinoids. It doesn't have quite all of them, but ours is full spectrum and it's got quite a few.
So tell everybody, where can we find your stuff? Where do we look for you? Where do we follow you on social media?
So you can find us at magufarm.com. And then we're also in quite a few stores nationwide. We're with a pretty big distributor. We got on only a few months after being in business, had some meetings and showed them our stuff. They were a big fan of it to begin with. You can smell our oil and tell that it's made from flower, that it's a bit different from the other stuff. And the fact that we are different, we're not a distillate based, oil, which is the majority of companies. And I'm not knocking them, we'll probably end up making distillate based oils, at least for other people, maybe even for like a sister brand of ourselves, because some people don't want to, to have chlorophyll, which ours does have chlorophyll.
Okay.
I think that for me personally, I find that to be one of the medical benefits that I like in what I take.
For sure.
So, I find I really want a full spectrum when I'm using it personally. So I keep that to the line of our brand currently for Magu's Gift, just because I feel like that's the most whole and natural,
Yeah, I like it, man. Can't wait to try it. You guys will have to send me a bottle for testing. And
yeah, absolutely.
And that's cool. We've, on the marketing thing, we've really kind of hacked the code there, and we figured out how to build massive audiences on social media and not try to be a CBD brand, and then really pull all the leads off of social onto email and other channels where we can then show them our offer on channels that we own. So we've been able to acquire 500 customers in 3 days, 300 customers, overnight for somebody else, just by building these, really delivering lots of content, valuable content, connecting with our audience, and then delivering up solutions, asking that they be interested in looking at some of that stuff. And I think we're finding now is, we've been shoved products down our throat for the past 30 years. And I think we're seeing trends that people or they want to connect with real people. And then, the products is kind of like, it's always the next step. It's the next thing to talk about, after the conversation, and what are you going through? Or here's a story about this child that had this. And, oh yeah, by the way, they use full spectrum extracts. So that's always been something that's worked for us. And we get a lot of companies coming at us, asking us, how do you do it? How do you do it? And it's a little bit counterintuitive. You don't push your CBD out there. And I've been in the cannabis space for a long time, so you never really kind of wave your flag, right? But the network and the audience, the network effect and stuff, and the education, outreach, and entertainment and news, the back end of it is like they inquired to me. They asked me, like, what's the best products? I know you guys are interviewing all these people. Where are the best products? Yeah. So, engaging an audience, different ways of marketing, there's a lot of barriers, banking, merchant processing accounts, manufacturing. It's a lot of things in our industry that's, it's cool. There's a barrier of entry. A lot of people don't come in here, and there's guys you can see really quickly. There's guys coming in with big briefcases full of money, looking to cash in, looking to buy, acquire, build, sell off, all this kind of stuff. And then, but the majority is people with a passion like yourself that have a story. That's really the majority of our industry. Now we hear about, these big companies, Canopy and Aurora and Acreage and all these big companies making big moves and doing what Wall Street does, really pumping up their stocks in order to sell it all off. But those guys are the minority. The more and more people that I go across, and my whole team, I've got a list of all the CBD brands in America. And I've got a list of all the retail stores that open, and I just keep adding to it. And more, it's just guys like you and me who had an experience with this plant and a real passion and want to get out there and help people and change the way things are, change the way Big Pharma's been selling us all these opioids and pills, and, one pill for this, and then another pill for that, and then another pill to deal with those side effects. And then, so it's a passion movement. So it's been awesome to hear your story, how you're doing things. You're really unique in the industry. You're the solventless. That's what I do in the THC side. We grow with Korean natural farming, no fertilizers. We make all the inputs ourselves out of microbiology in the forest and down by the river. Or we use fish, and we mix fish with sugar, and it breaks it down into an amino acid. And so we make our own inputs there. We build the soil. It's no till. We're not tilling the soil. It's just a growing microbiome. The whole soil is like one big living. Yeah. And then we harvest the cannabis, and we freeze it immediately. We cryo freeze it, and then we take 0 parts per million water, reverse osmosis, distilled water, and we pull the resin and all the cannabinoids off with ice and that cold water. And then we sift that right with silk screens, and then we put it into a vacuum freezer overnight and vacuum freeze it. Then we pull it out, and it looks like white sand. I mean, it's frozen and it's like sand. And then we put that we press that in a mechanical press from the guys at purepressure.com.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we do things. And I've been kind of in the organic growing, and I had a skincare and herbal business, and I used to distill essential oils in Northern California. I spent a lot of time in Humboldt. So my whole growing up in the industry was around older hippies, Vietnam vets, the guys that were really pioneered the industry were my teachers. And until I came out to Denver in 2009 and started one of the first legal licensed dispensary cultivation and distribution companies in the world, we got our license, and I found out about big business, and I found out about retail, and I'd been up in the mountains, doing these big cultivation and processing projects with people up there in the medical side of things, and getting into retail and big business and all the real estate stuff. That was like a big shock to me. So I'm really, I'm just really passionate about telling stories like yours, getting it out there to the world, to all my listeners, letting people know there is a lot of room in this industry. Don't be scared of these big, huge companies. People value other people and their stories and what they're doing with their companies. So I think it's really cool what you guys at Magu are doing. So you guys can find it. What's the website again?
MaguFarm.com, MaguFarm.com.
Cool. And any handles, Facebook, Instagram, people should follow you?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I believe Facebook is at magufarm.co. And then Twitter and Instagram, you can just, Magu Farm, and we come up pretty quickly.
Awesome. Well, you've heard it. And today has been a cool convo with Brad Dollins of Magu Farm. Man, he's got some cool products. You guys go check it out at his website. And if you want the cheat sheet, the show notes, go ahead. You just look down below here. There'll be a place where you can click download, and I'll give you all the cheat sheets, all the links that we talked about today. You can go and check out this guy's products. They look pretty awesome. And hopefully, Brad, you're going to send me a couple bottles to check out.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
We can share that with our audience and, hopefully get you some more.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to send you some stuff.
Over there. All right.
Happy to send you some stuff. Local smoke shops would probably be a decent place for someone to look for us if they want to try to find us locally. And if
Are you
not,
in Colorado?
Yeah, like just any local smoke shop, because our distributor service is like 5,000 nationwide. So the odds of a local one having it or having access to it from their, the distributor would probably be pretty high. And then we also, we keystone it for local businesses and stuff like that ourselves. So.
Awesome. There you heard it, guys. You can find Magu Farms at Smoke Shop near you. This has been James Brinkerhoff Jr. We've had an awesome time today on the Hemp Revolution podcast, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to another rockstar episode of the Hemp Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Sonia Gomez, and just for you, we took notes on this episode along with the links and other resources mentioned inside of today's show. Get them for free right now by going to theemeraldcircle.com. Now, if you want more on this, please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcast or wherever you like to listen, and you will be automatically entered in to our monthly giveaway where you can get swag bags, all kinds of cool gifts and discounts from our guests, and exclusive offers that are only mentioned right here in the Hemp Revolution podcast. I can't wait for you to share this with your friends. With your help, we've been able to impact millions of people's lives around the world with the truth about hemp and cannabis. And we know that you love us so much that you're going to leave a review and rate us right now on your favorite platform to absorb content just like this. Now, we challenge you to dream big and love the life that you live. Thanks so much, and we hope to see you on our next episode of the Hemp Revolution podcast. Ciao for now.